Dragon Ball Z, the Legacy of Goku, now on Game Boy Advance.
Ah, yes, the Legacy of Goku, the Game Boy Advance classic that let you live out your Dragon Ball Z power fantasy. Assuming your power fantasy involved watching Goku get beat up by squirrels and wild dogs over and over, that is. Released in 2002, this was the first truly original Dragon Ball Z title developed in North America. And boy does it feel like it. It's like the devs watched a single episode of the show, skimmed through an RPG Maker tutorial, and said, yeah, we've got this. What followed was an action RPG where Goku, the literal savior of the universe, could be taken down by fluffy woodland creatures. But for all of its weird design choices, janky hitboxes, and beautifully nostalgic GBA sprite work, the Legacy of Goku carved out a strange little piece in gaming history. Now, jokes aside, this game holds a weird little pocket of misplaced love and nostalgia for me, personally. I spent a lot of car rides hunched over my original Atomic Purple GBA, grinding through wolves and trying to figure out where to go next in this game. I was far too young to realize just how rough this game actually was. But back then, it didn't really matter. It was Dragon Ball Z in video game form. And in 2002, that was all it took. For a teenage boy riding high on anime hype, well, that might as well have been the end of the discussion. So let's dive into this oddball relic that somehow spawned sequels, kicked off a handheld DBZ trilogy, and helped fuel the early 2000s Toonami-sponsored Super Saiyan fever. Let's get into the meat of the discussion. The Legacy of Goku is a top-down Zelda-inspired action RPG, with vague traces of Secret of Mana's DNA seeping through. Now, in terms of graphics, the Legacy of Goku might be one of the better-looking early GBA titles out there, at least when it comes to capturing that Dragon Ball vibe with what the handheld hardware could handle at the time. The environments are colorful and distinct, with a nice variety that takes you from forests and plains to snowy terrain, and eventually the pixelated greens of Planet Namek. Sure, the maps are a little repetitive, but there's a surprising amount of detail packed into those tiny little screens. The sprite artist clearly put some love into making each area feel like a place, not just a backdrop. And then there's Goku's sprite. It's a little chunky, yeah, but it's expressive in its own way. There's something oddly satisfying about watching that little orange blur run around and shoot ki blasts. Anime designs are solid too, with recognizable forms even in the bite-sized GBA format. From woodland creatures to Frieza's final form, it's clear the team wanted to make things look as close to the anime as the tech would allow. Dialogue portraits are actually really clean too. They're sharp, colorful, and honestly some of the most faithful representations of the anime on the GBA at the time. They may not animate, but for fans in 2002, just seeing those faces pop up was enough to feel like you were playing the show. It's not flawless, animation is stiff, and some overworld NPCs look like they wandered in from a different game entirely. But for what it is, the graphics hold up surprisingly well. It might not be flashy, but it's got charm. That early 2000s, we're gonna do our best with 32 bits in a dream kind of charm. The soundtrack in this game? Honestly, there's not much to write home about. There aren't many individual tracks, and the ones that are there loop so quickly that they get repetitive, and they start to feel more like an audio wallpaper than actual music. After just a few minutes in any given area, the soundtrack starts to grate on you. Like it's trying to sandpaper your nostalgia in real time. It's the kind of music that doesn't necessarily ruin the experience, but it's definitely not there to elevate it either. The composer, Ariel Gross, did what he could within the limitations of the Game Boy's sound chip, but the end result feels more like placeholder music that accidentally made it into the final build. It's ambient, sometimes moody, but it never really captures the bombastic energy or emotional weight of Dragon Ball Z. The core gameplay, honestly, it's not bad. When it works, it works. You walk around, punch things occasionally, and throw out a Kamehameha if your energy isn't being too stingy. You level up by grinding on whatever poor animals that wander too close. But when it doesn't work, and believe me, that's pretty often, the thin veil of game starts to slip. Enemies have bizarre movement patterns, hit detection is about as accurate as Yamcha's win streak, and the combat loop starts feeling less like Dragon Ball Z and more like a typical nature documentary. So speaking of the combat in Legacy of Goku, it's basic. You've got a punch, a generic ki blast, and eventually the Kamehameha and the solar flare. That's it. No combos, no blocking, no real nouns. You just mash punch or spam the ki blast and hope the enemy AI forgets to move, which happens pretty often. Your ki attacks use energy, which you can recharge by standing still and twiddling your thumbs, while Goku makes his best loading screen face. The problem? Energy regenerates so slowly, it's actually faster just to walk up and slap everything to death, and pray you don't get hit in return. Then there's the leveling system, which sounds cool at first. Defeat enemies, gain XP, get stronger. Classic RPG stuff. But this game expects you to grind in such a way that Dragon Quest starts looking like a casual afternoon. And that's just to survive basic encounters. You're constantly underleveled unless you go full psychopath on every squirrel, snake, and dinosaur in sight. Which is a weird sentence to say about a Dragon Ball game, but I mean, here we are. And now we get to flying, arguably the most exciting concept in a Dragon Ball game. And it's completely butchered. Flying in Legacy of Goku isn't freedom, it's just walking, slightly faster, but with a limited time. You can't fly over trees, or mountains, or basically anything that would make it fun. And if your gauge runs out before you land, you fall out of the sky like a rejected glider that gets booted back to where you started from, with zero flight energy left, until you find one of those scattered orbs to top you off. Ah, so immersive. Now let's talk about the story, or what Legacy of Goku considers a story. The game loosely follows the Saiyan and Namek sagas. Emphasis on loosely. It jumps around so much you'd think it was edited by someone watching Dragon Ball without subtitles or audio. The real kicker? You only get to see Goku's perspective on events, which might sound fine until you remember that Goku was literally dead for the first half of the story. So instead of playing as Gohan, Piccolo, or Krillin while holding the line on Earth, you're stuck jogging through Snake Way, punching ghosts, and getting lost in Heaven's version of the DMV. Big iconic fights like Piccolo vs. Nappa, skipped. Gohan's survival arc in the wilderness, gone. Vegeta's entire character arc leading into Namek, not even a footnote. It's like the game developers forgot that Goku was usually the last person to turn up in the story, and misses 90% of the character development or plot. And when you do catch up with the main events, they're over in a matter of seconds. Goku shows up, delivers some vague dialogue that barely connects the dots, and then the game moves on like it's late for an appointment. There's no sense of pacing or build-up, just a highlight reel that they forgot to add the highlights to. And just when you think the game can't get any weirder, it hits you with side quest. Yes, this action RPG, based on one of the most high-octane anime franchises of all time, grinds to a halt so Goku can help a dinosaur find its egg, stop a bank robbery, or rescue a lost cat. These quests are sprinkled throughout the game like someone told the dev team, "Hey, we actually need content," and they panicked and raided the side quest bin from a completely different game. Most of them boil down to walking somewhere, punching a few animals, and then slowly walking back. Usually, you get a healing item for a reward, which you could have just found laying on the ground anywhere else. There's zero narrative payoff, no meaningful character interactions, no cheeky, fun dialogue, and half of the time, you're not even sure why Goku is doing these things. Like imagine watching Dragon Ball Z and Goku stops on his way to save his son, to instead go pick herbs for the local children. It's like filler content, but worse. And now we get to the boss battles, the supposed highlight of any Dragon Ball Z game. The moments where the music swells, the stakes rise, and you finally get to face off against legendary villains like Raditz, Nappa, and Frieza. Except, in the Legacy of Goku, these fights feel less epic, and they feel more like awkward slap fights. The bosses in this game don't do much to challenge your skills, as they just try to overwhelm you with pure jank. They hit harder, move faster, and in some cases have absolutely no telegraphs to their attacks. So your best bet is usually to cheese them off-screen with ki blasts. The Raditz fight, less of a duel and more of a run around the trees and pray he forgets how to pathfind. The Vegeta fight, he just casually deletes your health bar while you flail at him like you're trying to punch through molasses. And don't even get me started on Frieza, who goes through his forms like an NPC trying to speedrun his own game. There's no real strategy, no satisfying back and forth. You just hit and run, spam your energy blasts, and hope you leveled up enough by beating wildlife into submission. If you didn't, enjoy this annoying death screen. You'll probably see it a lot. So how did the Legacy of Goku even happen? Well, buckle up, because this wasn't made by a veteran Japanese dev team who grew up with Dragon Ball. Nope, this was developed by Webfoot Technologies, a small American studio best known for their educational PC games and a Beauty and the Beast game. You know, the natural choice for bringing Dragon Ball Z to life. Atari, who held the Western Dragon Ball game rights in the early 2000s, tapped Webfoot to create an original handheld RPG. And to their credit, the ambition was there. Adapting Dragon Ball into an action RPG covering the first major arcs, letting you play as Goku, and even including flight mechanics. On paper, it sounds awesome, but in practice, it feels like a group of people read about Dragon Ball, saw some clips, and then had 6 months and a prayer to put something together on the GBA. The result is a game that constantly feels like it's bursting at the seams with ideas it can't quite execute. Goku's moveset is weirdly limited, the story skips major battles, and the pacing feels less than ideal. And yet, somehow, The Legacy of Goku sold really well. Like, well enough to justify not one, but 2 sequels on the GBA. Which, frankly, is a miracle. Because if you told me a game where Goku dies to a squirrel became the foundation for a successful trilogy, I'd assume you were the one that needed a senzu bean. This game isn't mechanically bad, it's just undercooked. It feels like something that needed another 6 months in the oven but got pulled out early and slapped with a Dragon Ball Z sticker to make sure kids would still bite. And bite we did. The only thing that kept the Legacy of Goku from dying on arrival was that golden DBZ logo on the box. In 2002, that was all it took. You could have sold us a calculator with Goku on it, and we'd have thrown all our allowance at it like it was a AAA title. And while the game barely holds up today, it's hard to completely hate it. It's a weird, janky, misguided attempt to turn one of the most high-energy anime series ever into a slow-paced action RPG by a studio that probably googled who was Goku on day one. But it was also the beginning of something. Its sequels would go on to fix nearly every problem this game had, and Legacy of Goku laid that weird little foundation, warts and all. For as much as I can point out the faults and air my complaints, I actually really like this game. It might not be a good game, but it was important. It sowed the seeds for what would become 2 excellent DBZ games in the future. So yeah, it's not good, but for some of us, it was not good. Well, I think that about covers the first entry of the Legacy of Goku series. If you would like for me to cover the sequels eventually, please drop a comment below and let me know. But for now, I would like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.